Okay, guys. Tonight I'm gonna talk about web APIs you probably didn't know existed. So the idea of this talk is to, like, if you're a beginner, if you're somebody that is starting with web today, I hope that this talk gives you a sense of what's happening on the web and all the possibilities that you have in this platform. And if you're somebody that is, like, you work with the web for lots of years and you already know you're up to date with what's happening, I hope that this talk gives you some of the details for those APIs and maybe some ideas of how to implement that in the real world. So here's my Twitter. If you want to send any messages, any questions you have, please tweet. I'll be happy to answer anything you have. And I work at Liferay. It's a company from LA. It's a very nice company in LA. And I really like San Francisco. Like, I'm really happy to be here tonight. Actually, like, I feel that this city treats me very well. And you know, like, if you walk like 3 blocks away from here, you'll see that there's a Zeno place, actually. So I just want to say thanks for that. Like, thank you. And yeah, so what I wanted to like recap like this past years is, like, if you look back on 2008, like, who was working with the web in 2008? Okay, so that's nice. So you probably remember like when HTML5 arrived for the first time. It was just amazing. Like, oh my God, this is the best thing that ever happened. Like, Flash is gonna die. And it was just great, right? Like, all the news was just great. And on 2009, Ian Higson, who was the guy that was writing this spec, he gave an interview, and then like all the press was starting to spread this message that HTML5 won't be ready until 2022. And that was like pretty scary. Like, all the developers that were playing with those technologies that were like really excited, like HTML5 is gonna change everything. And then, okay, this is gonna be ready in 2022. So what's the point of like trying this out, right? Okay, like some time went by, and in 2010, Steve Jobs wrote this letter on Thoughts on Flash, and like basically saying that we're not gonna support Flash on iOS devices, and HTML5 is what we want to support and what we're gonna use for iOS. And that shaked like the whole thing. Like, all the Flash developers were like scared about like what they were gonna do, and eventually Flash died along the way, but you know, that was pretty scary at that time. In 2011, HTML5, like, they presented this HTML5 logo. And the way like the community embraced that idea that HTML5 was like a hero, you know, this image of like this hero that is gonna save the day, and all those crappy plugins that we used to have on our browsers were not needed anymore. In 2012, HTML5 was getting really, really popular, and when something gets really, really popular, there's some bad press that goes with that as well. So this is an interview from Mark Zuckerberg saying that our biggest mistake was betting too much on HTML5. Basically, he was telling that using HTML5 for their apps was not a very good idea, and just saying that using iOS and like building those apps using those platforms, using Swift and using Java was better for them. But you know, those things happened. 2013, people were still using, like, building all those games and all those things happening. HTML5 was still growing a lot. And finally, on 2014, HTML5 was declared as a the spec was declared as a recommendation, and that's the final step for a W3C spec. So basically, this means that HTML5 is now ready. And okay, that's 2014. Now what? You know, we are in 2016, and what happened between that moment and now? You know, we all have like those frameworks, React, Angular, all those things happen, all those things grown on that time. But what about the platform? So that's the idea of this talk. You know, you probably heard about Canvas, local storage, WebSockets, audio, drag and drop. You probably heard about all those things. But what else is going on the web? So I'm going to show some of the APIs. That's the first one. And the idea is to demonstrate the power of each one. Page visibility is a very nice API that you can basically check if a current tab on your browser or if you are on your phone, it's visible or not, like if a page is visible or not. In the past, people used to listen for on focus or you know, those kinds of weird events in JavaScript, but that was not a very good approach because you could have like 2 windows on your page. But basically how this API works is you just like listen for an event called visibility change, and then you have this property called document.hidden, and then you check if this page is visible or it's not visible for the user at that time. This specification changed a little bit in this past year, and like one of the recommendations for now is that you use this visibility state object, this property, and basically the idea is that there's a new thing called link rel prefetch, something like that, that you can like load a page until it's not like from one page you load the other one beforehand, and you can basically check if that page was pre-rendered, if it's visible or if it's not visible. The browser support for that, it's pretty cool. It's pretty good. And like, but the question is where to use this kind of thing. Where can I identify if the page is visible or not? What's that useful for? So imagine this kind of demo where you have a video on your page, and then you can have like some feedback when you play the video, showing that it's playing. When you open a new tab, you can just say that that video is paused. If you go back to that tab, you continue that video. So this is a kind of nice thing you can do. You know, it's very annoying when you are on a page and then you go to the other one and there's some music going on the background, and then you can't find the tab, and then you're like, oh my gosh, where's this tab? And then you get crazy. If you have lots of windows, that's pretty bad. So the cool thing about this is that you can identify this kind of pattern, and that's useful. That's a good user experience from one side if you're building a game, for example. But if you're building like a YouTube kind of thing, that's a bad user experience because you don't want to like pause the video and the user like goes to work and then is doing something else. He wants to like listen to the video or something. So there's like these 2 sides of this problem. The other one is online state. Basically, the idea is that you can identify from a web page if the user has connection or not. Is he online or is he offline? You know, is this person online or offline? And you can basically check that using navigator.online, and you're gonna get like a true or false. It's a Boolean property. Or you could just listen for those events. So you can just listen for offline events or online events, and that's it. That's pretty easy. The browser support is also very good. Like those 2 things you can use nowadays. It's very useful. And there's some new APIs coming. This one is called Network Information API. It's just like add more things that you can control the connectivity from the user. So basically you can check how is the download speed for the user. Is he using or is her using like 3G, or maybe she's using Wi-Fi. You know, you have more detailed information. And where can you use this kind of thing? Like imagine an application like this. So this is like a tweet deck. It's like but I built this app for like a GitHub, a tweet deck for GitHub. That's basically the idea. So here I have like columns for every single GitHub feed that I have. And I'm going to, oops. So I'm going to turn off my connection, and now my Wi-Fi is off. So I can give some user feedback saying, hey, you lost your connection. Maybe you're not going to have some new things on your application because we need to load things from the web. And then when you turn it on, you can give some feedback to the user. So this is the kind of like little things you can add to your application that it's going to make the user's experience much better, and the user's going to understand what's going on your app. The other one is vibration. So we have all those kinds of feedbacks that we can give to users. We have like visual feedbacks. We can add those kinds of banners, right? Or we have like some sound that you can put on your application. But this one, you can like make some tactile feedback. That's pretty nice. So the way it works is basically called navigator.vibrate, and then you can pass some number in milliseconds. So if I just put 1,000, it's going to be 1 second. And you can also pass like a pattern. So you can say, OK, vibrate for 400 milliseconds, wait 300, and then vibrate for 300 again, and then wait, and that's it. Like, and as you can imagine, people are just crazy on the web, so they created like songs using those vibrations. So you can basically like, you know, vibrate the Super Mario song, the Star Wars, Go Power Rangers. That's probably my favorite one, and it's pretty nice. The browser support is kind of good, but it's one of those things that it's not gonna. It's a progressive enhancement feature, you know. If there's no vibration if the user is on desktop, there's no vibration, right? So it's not gonna change the user experience very much, depending on how you're gonna use. One of the ideas is like, imagine you're building a game, and I don't know if you guys remember this game. It's like a Windows game, very, very old game. But I was actually playing it on my phone, and like you go from one way to the other, and then when you hit like a rock, it vibrates. So it's a very small detail, but it's super nice. You know, it's the kind of feedback that, you know, it changes the experience. This other one is from Tomomi, which is here actually. And it's a form validation. Imagine you have a field, and when you submit the form, you just check if the form is like required or not. So you can vibrate the telephone to see, okay, this is there's an error, so the user can feel it. You know, this is the kind of thing that improves the user experience, especially on mobile. The other one is device orientation. Imagine you can get the physical orientation of a device, you know? Imagine you can just listen for some event like device orientation and get those values and do something. Like if I have a phone, I can just move my phone and I can get the position of my phone, you know? So the way this works is like you listen for events, you get those 3 values, the gamma, beta, and alpha. And then with just this line of code, this is an actual example that I'm going to show. Like I just have an image, and I'm listening for that event. I got the gamma, I got the beta, and now I can use CSS transform. And using the rotate property, I can move my image according to how I move my phone. So, oops. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Let's see how it works. I have a camera over here. So I have this guy. I don't know if you know him, but okay. Yeah, so you can just like move around and do those kinds of things. That's pretty nice, right? The browser support is also very cool, but where to use it? You know, you're not gonna rotate Donald Trump's face all the time. What is that useful? Well, Facebook is a good example. They are using Not exactly this, because this is the native app that they have. But if you get your phone and try to see one of those 360 images or 360 videos, you can actually rotate your phone like this, and then you'll see this different perspective. Like, you can do that nowadays with JavaScript. The other part is the clipboard. That's a very important part of like the computer, especially, and also the mobile devices, like not only desktop but also mobile devices. This is an API that you can interact with the clipboard, and can be like the copy, the cut, the paste, all those three things. In the past, we had like Zero Clipboard. It's still a very nice project, and it was one of the most used clipboard libraries for a long time. But it requires Flash, so I always wanted to have this kind of behavior on my applications, but I never wanted to use Flash. And when I saw this thing, I was like really excited. And I wanted to play it out with Clipboard to see how it works. There are basically 3 steps. The first one is a browser requirement. Like, you need user interaction to make this thing work, okay? So you cannot simulate events, you cannot trigger some fake events. You actually need user interaction. That's like a browser requirement. So you can just like get a button from your page, and then you listen for the click event. And then there are 2 other steps. You need to select and you need to copy. Let's check them out. You can select things programmatically on your page. You know when you get your mouse and then you select some text? You can do that with JavaScript. So in this function, like, we are getting an input, and then we need to focus on that input and then select the content. So that's the one thing. We need to select the text. And the other part is we need to use the exec command function to actually tell the browser, okay, now it's time to copy. So you need to select and then finally copy. And there's some events that you can listen to. The browser support for those events are really, really bad, but you can listen to that. And when I first saw this API, I was really excited, but I started to play, and it was really, really bad. You know, all those requirements, all those things for a very simple thing, which is copying to your clipboard. So I created this project called Clipboard.js. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. But it's one of like probably the most popular clipboard library nowadays. And you can try it out. It doesn't require Flash. Like, if you want to check the browser support, it's pretty good. But there's still one little guy, Safari. And I just hate that, because people open issues all the time saying, hey, it's not working on Safari. I know. They're not implementing it. And where can you use that? This one is pretty straightforward. Like, imagine on GitHub, like if you guys use GitHub, I'm pretty sure you already like copied some, like the Git repository, so that's useful. Also, like, imagine a page like Bootstrap. You know, you have this huge code snippet, and then you have like this little button that you can copy to Clipboard. So that's pretty nice. Like, if you have like a dashboard for your company, and there's some information that you need to copy, these are those little things that you can add to your application. And this page is actually Bootstrap 4, which they are using Clipboard.js now. The other one is ambient light. So this API, it exposes the sensor data and captures the light intensity of a room. So like, we have some lights here, so maybe we can detect that. And the way this API works is basically, no, you can, basically, you can listen to the device light event, and it returns like this event, and then you can get the value. And it's like this unit I didn't know existed. It's called lux. So it's the number of the light intensity of a place. And then you can play with it, all sorts of things. So So imagine you have, just a second, plug the audio here. So on this example, like we have this friendly ghost, doesn't do anything, but if we turn off the lights, I will kill you. I will kill you. I will kill you. I will kill you. It gets pretty scary, right? So that's a crazy thing, right? And you can use this API nowadays on your browser. It's pretty hard to continue a talk after that. But the API is changing for that particular thing. There's a new spec called generic sensor, so they are putting like some APIs inside of that, and one of this is ambient light. So the way it's gonna work now, or in the future, because it's not very supported nowadays, just like you initialize this new ambient light sensor, you need to start it, and then you need to listen to the event, and then you can stop if you want to. The browser support is pretty bad for that nowadays, and the reason for that is because the API is changing. And the question is where to use this thing, you know? Last time I was here, I showed an example using this as well. And whenever I show this, people say like, but what's the point of this, you know? I'm not gonna just turn off the lights and do something with my application, you know? But there's some really nice use cases. Imagine you're going like outdoors and, you know, the colors are not very good on your phone, you know? And you want to like maybe improve a little bit the contrast of your application, and like say to your user, hey, I noticed you changed the ambient UR, let me change a little bit the color so it can improve your readability. Or this one, this is like really, really popular, you know, everybody feels that. If you're like on your bed and then you have this really bright light, what if your application said, hey, I noticed you're in a dark room. Do you want me to switch to a dark theme? And then the colors go dark, and then you can have a really nice experience. So this is really useful, actually. Another one is the battery status. So now web pages can just get the information from your battery. They know if the battery is on or off, like the charger is on or off, and how much you have for your battery. The way it works, it's a little bit different than the other ones. You have like a promise-based API, so you call this get battery function, and then on the callback, you add the event listener. And there's a lot of different events that you can listen. This one is to identify the level change, like like you have 30%, 60%, how much you have on your battery. The browser support, it's not very good, but okay, it's fine. And where to use it. Do you guys like Pokemon Go? It's pretty bad, the battery consumption, right? What if we had like a web-based Pokemon Go where you can just like tell, okay, you got like 23 minutes remaining to catch Pokemons. Go buy a charger or charge your phone, I don't know. So that's very nice, and there's a lot of things going on the web nowadays. Like you have web components, and under that umbrella you have templates, you have shadow DOM, HTML imports, custom elements. There's a lot of things going on with progressive web apps, service workers. There's tons of things like Bluetooth. There's just a lot of things going on the web. And I'm just going to show like things that are more for the future now. Like those things I mentioned before, you can use it nowadays. And maybe even if the browser support was not very good, I would recommend checking it out, you know, because in 2008, everybody was saying like, oh, don't use HTML5 because the browser support is not very good. And there's a lot of people that just said, okay, I'm just going to wait for HTML5 to be supported everywhere, and I don't think that's a very smart strategy. One of the APIs that is coming is WebAssembly. So this is like a really low-level programming language for the web. The idea is that you can run really complex code and really powerful things like a game like this with a super good I like that guy. And like the performance is pretty crazy, right? Imagine that running on your browser. It's just crazy. The browser support, like you can run in some browsers, but it's under development. You know, there's a lot of like everything's changing really, really fast regarding that. There's also WebVR. I guess the last meetup was the last SF HTML5 meetup was about WebVR, and basically you can like have access to devices like Google Cardboard if you have one. You can just like open an application and see it on a Google Cardboard through the web. So that's pretty cool. Some browsers already support that, and this is like just an example from a phone. And when you put it on the cardboard, you can actually see it. It's from A-Frame, a very, very nice project from Mozilla. And this is like a really good experience. Like you have, it's pretty cool. The performance, everything is pretty great. And there's also like gamepad. So this one is pretty simple. You can access a game controller via USB. So you can like listen to the gamepad connected event, and then you can get information from how many game controllers you have connected on my computer. And then you can get its ID, like how many buttons it has and all that. And the way it works, like you first need to listen for the gamepad connected event, and after that you need to use like request animation frame in order to detect the buttons from your game. So and the cool thing about this API is that they are now adding support for those WebVR controllers and also like touch-based devices. So the browser support is actually good, and let me show you something. I built like a Nintendo emulator. I hope there's no lawyers on the room because I can probably get sued for this. But the idea is that you can do you guys have a game controller, somebody? No? I have one. So let's see if it's gonna work. Okay, yeah. So you can just connect like a game controller and just like, I don't see this working well on a web page, but on a game that's really useful. Okay. And I like this event because there's a lot of magic going on, you know? Like every time I come, like I feel like there's so many cool technologies. The first time I came here was in 2014. It was like this all about Polymer event. I remember because I'm from Brazil and I flew from Brazil here for a 20-minute talk. It was pretty crazy. And now I just had to drive. So I drove from LA, where I lived, to San Francisco. And I'm just really happy to be here. And it's just like, sometimes I ask myself, like, why, like, we drove like 5 a.m. to San Francisco? Why doing that, you know? And like, there's so many cool things going on, and I really like the chance of like talking to you and like having conversations and learning from each other, and that's why I'm here. So I hope this talk was useful, and I hope we can connect more. Okay? Thank you.